The Trumpet Daily is presented by Stephen Flurry. The program analyzes world news and history from a distinct perspective and compares current events to prophecies found in the Bible. The program also offers free educational publications, including the Trumpet News Magazine and books and booklets. The Trumpet Daily is produced at the Philadelphia Church of God's home campus in Edmond, Oklahoma, and its sister campus in Edstone, England. More information is available at thetrumpet.com.
The Trumpet Daily program begins right now.
Today's world news, what it means, where it's taking us.
I bring you the one and only possible message of world peace.
This is a message of hope, tremendous hope. And he said unto me, you must prophesy again.
The Trumpet Daily program begins right now.
It's still a shock. Not as big a shock as it was for Andrew. Have you seen all the front pages? You'll have seen the picture now.
This photo is extraordinary, isn't it? I've actually got the name of the photographer. Phil Noble is the photographer. So we should name check him. It is remarkably good that he was able to capture that, because it just says everything, doesn't it? I mean, what a fall from grace.
He just looks absolutely
shell-shocked. It's the front page of every single newspaper this morning. I mean, it's extraordinary, isn't it? Extraordinary. And I mean, the Daily Mail has got it as 11 hours of the arrest plunged the modern monarchy into its gravest peril.
They are still searching his former residence over at Windsor, and they did release him last night, but he's still under investigation, of course. Now, Andrew was arrested yesterday morning and held for roughly 11 hours on suspicion of misconduct in public office. Now, King Charles III, Andrew's older brother, said that the law must take its course and quickly got back to business as usual, appearing at a London Fashion Week event yesterday while Queen Camilla attended an engagement at Westminster. The royal family is trying to distance themselves from the disgraced prince. It's the first time a senior royal has been arrested in modern history. In fact, the last arrest was in 1647 when King Charles I was charged with treason and sentenced to death.
Does this have the potential to bring down and effectively end the monarchy?
I don't think it's actually going to bring down the monarchy. However, I do think this could result in an abdication from King Charles, because this will all come down to who knew what when. His health is dreadful. Yesterday, and I was just get off the phone with contacts in the UK, and he looked really haggard at the fashion event that he went to in London. This is having a huge impact on him, his stress. He's a caring, giving, forgiving man, and he's tried to cover for his brother for a long time. But last but not least, he actually urged his mother, the beloved late Queen Elizabeth, not to make Prince Andrew at the time the trade envoy, because he I don't know whether he knew anything about any of this sort of thing, but he didn't think he was up to the job.
We heard the statement from the king. This is his younger brother. How damaging is all of this for the royal family?
I think the best they can hope for is the events of today are a break, a line that separates the royal family from Andrew Mountbatten Windsor. The worst is this is a body blow for the House of Windsor, for all the stripping of the titles and the throwing him out of his accommodation in Windsor. This is still the brother of the king, the 8th in line to the throne. This is still a senior member of the royal family whose work for his country has ended up in an investigation and an arrest. And it could not be more difficult for the palace. The king spoke at the end of his statement of duty and service, the foundation of the modern monarchy, the mantra of the royal family. And then we have this. So both the family and the monarchy are left more vulnerable tonight.
The shockwaves continue. It's really astonishing to watch this play out. It just makes me think of all these articles we've been drawing attention to about the seventh and final resurrection of the Holy Roman Empire, and just all that God's work has been saying for decades. And now you see this. And you think of the prophecy in Hosea of Ephraim having no king. I mean, the fact that they're openly talking about this, discussing, is this the end of the British monarchy? You're listening to Stephen Flurry, and this is the Trumpet Daily. We appreciate you joining us on today's show. If you'd like to email the program with some feedback, you can reach us at td@thetrumpet.com. So many headlines that could have been in the Plain Truth or the Trumpet magazine so many years ago. They actually were, and now it's happening. Now we're seeing it play out. Quite a lot to get to on today's show, as per usual. On Friday, I assume we've got to get confirmation. I think we've got the WorldWatch lined up for the end of the show, and then a follow-up on the Epstein saga, which of course is connected to Prince Andrew's fall from grace, as you heard there in the cold open. We had breaking news this morning about the Supreme Court ruling against President Trump's blanket tariffs. I think it was a 6-3 ruling. So a pretty big blow to President Trump's agenda. It's not covering every single tariff, but I guess the one used for emergency use. That's been struck down by the Supremes. But back to the end of the royal family, that we're even discussing this, is stunning. At the Daily Mail, Andrew's fall may now be complete. The question is, will he bring down the House of Windsor with him? Will he bring down King Charles? It says here, in the 40 years I've covered, this is by Richard Kay, I've covered the royal family, there have been other moments when the foundations of the institution seemed in peril. The loss of Diana, when our bottomless sorrow over her needless death was, rightly or wrongly, so very nearly overwhelmed by the rage at what was seen as the royal family's cold indifference towards the princess. Well, there's a lot more to that story. Obviously, it was a tragic death. But going back even to the start of the marriage, Charles and Diana, Herbert Armstrong stood alone, questioning whether or not the marriage would even last. And then you have all of the sordid affairs. Leave aside Andrew for a moment. Look at King Charles. Let's look at the history. I mean, really, this shit, we've talked so much this week about the foundation of any stable civilization. It's the family. The family is the bulwark. And what has this royal family done to really uphold the strength, the integrity, the Bible-based organization and roles of a family as God designed for it to be? I mean, if you think of it, the royal family in Britain, they should be the chief defenders of the traditional family as it's outlined in the Bible. And yet you look at the family, it's not a pretty picture. It's not just Prince Andrew, who's had some troubles. It says, but the affair to ex-Prince Andrew is of a different scale. Its unsavory allegations involving money, sex, and his abandonment of patriotism have permeated every crack of the royal fabric, overshadowing good intentions, obliterating hard-won reputations, and somehow trapping the family in an endless cycle of sleaze. With it, too, has gone public sympathy. So many in Britain are fed up. They're asking, what do we even have a royal family for? What's it for? I thought it was pretty interesting, even in the cold open. King Charles went back to business as usual, even with this family turmoil. And he went to, what was it, a London Fashion Week? Really? That's business as usual for the king? I mean, I suppose there's a place for those kinds of events. But at this time, during this moment of turmoil and trial, fashion, it's like my father said in The New Throne of David. He went through and said, you know, that this was just 10 years ago, not even. God had to raise up a new throne because of all that's happening on the old throne of David, that British throne. And you've got so many from this family, this house, that are so eager to, you know, pursue after and support LGBTQ. I forgot the acronym. It's always changing. Or ones that say, you know, ruling on that throne, take it or leave it. Who could have ever imagined a century ago or 2 centuries ago that the royal family of Britain would ever be at this place that it's in today? It says, it is now quite likely that however long or short the king's reign will be remembered for one thing and one thing only, Andrew, and how he dealt with him. How King Charles dealt with Andrew. It says later that Andrew is seen as entitled, arrogant, ignorant. The article says he has been deprived of everything, style, titles, honor, and home. But the pre-war world of the abdication, where 90% of the population would identify as monarchists, is so very different from modern Britain. Today, that support is at a tipping point. You know, the abdication scandal, I think from the 1930s, that was at a time when Britons saw themselves as monarchists. It's not like that today. It's different. Like I said, it's not just Andrew. It's top to bottom, just like Isaiah 3 or Isaiah 1 says. I was thinking of the sickness chapter, but really Isaiah 3, this is the Isaiah 3 royal family. Everything about it is upside down. Among young people, the crucial 16 to 24 age group, it was or has dwindled far more. Make no mistake, Andrew's grotesque story has been a gift to Republicans who gleefully sense that Britain's long love affair with the royal family, if not ending, is in terminal decline. There's people, there's a movement that they want a republic. The royal family's in decline. We want to be done with it. We want to move on. One of our news gatherers today just reminded us of, you know, King Charles basically kissing the Pope's ring. That was just a few weeks ago. And as I say, it's easy to key in on Andrew and his adultery and his sexcapades and the traitorous, you know, revelation of secrets, treason, whatever it is, you know, insider trading. But what does God think about King Charles praying with the Pope? I mean, that's a kind of spiritual adultery that upsets God. This is the Isaiah 3 monarchy. And really, when you look at the sins of America or Ephraim, it's really a perfect picture, isn't it? It's what you would expect. It's like I've been saying in these programs on Jeffrey Epstein. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. And it really does illustrate. It's so much bigger. We just recorded a program yesterday. It's so much bigger than Jeffrey Epstein. The sickness, as Isaiah 1 says, is top to bottom. Play that one montage of President Trump. I think it might be 11, where this is before the second term. You know, when he's out there, Epstein is coming up. President Trump calls it a cesspool. What happened there at Epstein's Island, and he says, yeah, we need to reveal all the files and everything. That was before the second term. Listen to this montage.
I was not a fan of Jeffrey Epstein. I'm not a fan of Jeffrey Epstein.
I had a falling out with him a long time ago. I don't think I've spoken to him for 15 years. I wasn't a fan. I was not a fan of his. That I can tell you. I was not a fan of his.
Epstein had an island. That was not a good place, as I understand, because I was never there.
But why would Bill Barr be covering up the death of Jeffrey Epstein?
I don't know what he did with Epstein, but possibly he did.
Do you think it's possible that Epstein was killed?
Oh, sure, it's possible.
I mean, the Attorney General of the United States, your Attorney General, clearly lied about the Epstein death.
Yeah, he was.
Why?
He was, certainly it wasn't well done. They had no cameras. They had no anything. Everybody was sleeping. And, you know, a case could be made. Look, I'm not going to get involved in it, but I can tell you a case could be made either way, but it certainly wasn't the most well-run place.
Bill Clinton.
Nice guy. Got a lot of problems coming up, in my opinion, with the famous island with Jeffrey Epstein. A lot of problems.
What about Bill Clinton? How does he factor into this?
Well, we know he was on the plane, not only on the plane a couple times, multiple times. He has been a friend of his, a continuing friend of his for years and years. Contrast that with Donald Trump, who hasn't spoken to him in many years, over a decade.
He was a good salesman. He was, was a hale and hearty type of guy. And he had some nice assets that he'd throw around, like islands. But a lot of big people went to that island. But fortunately, I was not one of them.
It's just very strange for a lot of people that the list of clients that went to the island has not been made public.
Yeah, it's very interesting, isn't it? Probably will be, by the way. Probably.
So if you're able to, you'll be...
Yeah, I'd certainly take a look at it.
Epstein, in your remarks about in the Q&A.
Well, I think he's got a problem. I mean,
what do you think the problem will be?
I don't know, but that island was really a cesspool. There's no question about it. Just ask Prince Andrew. He'll tell you about it.
Well, and a lot of people online with that last bit there are saying, yeah, President Trump was right again. Just ask Prince Andrew. And now we're witnessing Andrew's fall from grace. And the whole world is watching. What a spectacle. Shockwaves across not just Britain, but the whole world. I mean, here was someone eighth in line to be king on that old throne of David. What's he doing down at the cesspool? Jeffrey Epstein's island. Yeah, we need to make these revelations known. We need to expose the evildoers. That's what President Trump and so many of his supporters were saying in the lead up to his miraculous return to office. Then you look back at, what he's been saying over the past year, this first year of the second term, and it's a very different message. Clip 12.
President, I know you want to move past all this intrigue over the Epstein files, but I do want to ask you to clarify something you said this morning. You said this was all a hoax. Has your Attorney General told you this was a hoax? What evidence have you seen of that?
No, it's not the Attorney General. No, I know it's a hoax. It's started by Democrats. It's been run by the Democrats for 4 years. It's I call it the Epstein hoax. It takes a lot of time and effort. Instead of talking about the great achievements we've had.
The President said today you would release credible files related to Mr. Epstein. Are you prepared to do that, and when would you do it?
Our memo speaks for itself, and we'll get back to you on anything else.
For days, many on the right have been criticizing Attorney General Pam Bondi's decision not to release the files, but now high-profile figures, including House Speaker Mike Johnson, weighing in.
Like, look, where's the Epstein files? Can't find them. Don't exist. Like, they can get away with
Man. Yeah.
I don't understand it. Why they would be so interested. He's dead for a long time. He was never a big factor in terms of life. I don't understand what the interest or what the fascination is. I really don't. And the credible information's been given, but I don't understand why the Jeffrey Epstein case would be of interest to anybody. It's pretty boring stuff. It's sordid, but it's boring. And I don't understand why it keeps going. I think really only pretty bad people, including fake news, want to keep something like that going.
Could you resolve whether or not he did? And also, could you say why there was a minute missing from the jailhouse tape on the night of his death?
Could I just interrupt for a second? Are you still talking about Jeffrey Epstein? This guy's been talked about for years. You're asking, we have Texas, we have this, we have all of the things. And are people still talking about this guy, this creep? That is unbelievable. Do you want to waste the time, and do you feel like answering?
I don't mind answering.
I mean, I can't believe you're asking a question on Epstein at a time like this where we're having some of the greatest success.
A couple years ago, it was a cesspool. Just ask Prince Andrew. And now it's a Democrat hoax. Now it's fake, I guess. You still asking about Jeffrey Epstein? Listen, we've had some great achievements here. We're experiencing some great success. Marjorie Taylor Greene, she said the quiet part out loud. We played that clip earlier or on a previous program. Don't want to release the files because, well, it would make some of my friends look bad. It makes Prince Andrew look bad, formerly Prince Andrew. It makes Steve Bannon look pretty bad. It makes that Obama lawyer look pretty bad. It makes all of them look bad because it's filthy. Sin drenched. That would describe our nations today. It's unbelievable to watch this play out and to see how with a few exceptions, maybe Prince Andrew's the fall guy and it'll finally go away now. That's what President Trump wants. But look at how difficult or challenging it is just to bring justice to this country, to America. Habakkuk 1 talks about the gross and grave injustices that we see all around us. Where is the judgment? Well, as you read in the opening verses of Isaiah 3, the just judges have been taken away. That's part of the curses that we're being buried under. There's no righteous leadership, and there's lots of sin. Think of the royal family again. They should be the bulwark. The royal family should be the bulwark of a stable society in Britain. As it is, it's just the opposite. We're all in the cesspool. Sin is what makes you weak. I think it's in Deuteronomy 11 where Moses said to the Israelites of old, look, if you keep the commandments, that'll make you strong. That'll make you the envy of the world. Nations will look at you and say, I want to be like that nation. There's strength there. There's character. But that's not what we see from our nations today. That's not what we're projecting. You look at what all of the world is watching or viewing. They're seeing the spectacle. They're seeing the division. The downfall of the royal family. And then look at all that they see here in America. When they look at Epstein, they look at the files, they look at all the elites, they look at what was happening in the cesspool, and then they see now that, well, we're not even concerned about it. We've got to move on because, well, we've had some great achievements. Or, as Andrew said in that interview I played yesterday, well, the one reason I did kind of spend some time with Jeff is because he brought together extraordinary people. Where is people's judgment? Where is their wisdom? Where is their fear of God? Where is their standard of righteousness? There are no standards. We're just bottoming out. And God is not happy. God is not happy. I went through the passage in John 10 today in Life and Teachings where Jesus says, you know, I'm the good shepherd. And a good shepherd looks after the sheep, protects the sheep, provides for the sheep, leads the sheep to green pastures and still waters, like it says in Psalm 23. Protects the sheep from lions and bears like King David did. Jesus Christ is the good shepherd. And just to show you how much he loves and preserves and protects and reinforces family, he, as the good shepherd, laid down his life for God's family. John 3:16, for God so loved the world that he gave his son, his only son, so that we might have life in the family of God, so that we might have a future with God. God's people are defenders of family living. God's family living. That's what the family in the physical realm is or should be based upon. That pattern that God established for us. God is a father. Christ is the son. The church is the bride of Christ. Marriage, father, son, marriage, family, children. 2 Corinthians 6:16 through 18. You know, come out of this world and I'll receive you as children. This is the institution that the royal family should be defending fiercely, passionately, zealously. But that's not what we're seeing. This is Jesse Waters commenting on the scandal with Andrew, clip 4.
So here we have the Clintons, the British royal family, Wall Street, billionaires, all fighting for survival over the Jeffrey Epstein fallout. That's only just beginning. Foundations, surveillance, trade secrets. This is what Americans have been suspicious about and have been indignant over for decades. A politically connected international financial elite playing by their own rules and rigging the system against the average Joe while they look down on him in disgust. They've been getting away with it for years. Private jets, private islands, private security. When you operate at that altitude, no one will ever know. And if there's a problem, problems disappear. Fantasies are for sale, and the price might not be in hard currency. It could just be favors. Everybody wanted access to that world. Now everybody's running away. Could this scandal take down the monarchy? Probably does feel like a death blow. This is taking down a dynasty across the pond. How big of an earthquake is this?
I mean, this is huge. It doesn't get any bigger for the royal family.
Scandal on both sides of the Atlantic, as Jesse brings out there. And yet in the same show, I mean, Jesse's talking about the oncoming attack, perhaps, of Iran, all of these forces, the USS Gerald Ford, it's within days of being in the region. And I mean, he sounds positively giddy that this, I mean, we could take out the mullahs, the regime in Iran. And yet in the same program, you're basically seeing him describe these problems that are just worsening by the day. All of these favors for the elites. And then when exposed, the problems, they just disappear. No one's held to account. So much for the law, the rule of law, so much for law and order. Here's a bit more from the same show, clip 5.
Yeah, there is a much bigger story here, and I think the question that everybody is asking, certainly in the wake of this arrest of Andrew, is, does the buck stop with the king? Because there was a settlement in 2022 over the woman who accused Andrew of raping her, and so the king was potentially involved in that settlement. The Queen was alive at the time, but she was very ill. She was sick, and it seems that it was at the time Prince Charles who was coordinating things. That could lead to questions of, did he know beforehand about some of the allegations, some of the information out there about Andrew? What did he know and when? That's going to be the question that people are going to be asking at this point. So it's not just about his brother.
That's right. It's not going to go away. It's not going to go away for King Charles. I mean, this, at the very least, it's his legacy. But here they're openly talking about abdication. Really unbelievable. And unless you're a follower of God's work, I mean, it is stunning. I mean, again, the other side of it is Americans, so many of them don't care. But what's electrifying is just going back into the literature of the Philadelphia Church of God and seeing how that we've basically been preparing you for this moment. Listen to clip 6.
You know, what we're seeing here is potentially a trial, but there is a huge constitutional problem with that. Andrew could call his brother as a witness, and that would potentially undermine the whole court system because it serves at the pleasure of the king. You can't have the king coming in as a witness in a court case. This actually happened a few years ago with with Andrew Burrell, who was a butler for Princess Diana. He was accused of stealing some of her possessions, and he was going to bring the Queen in as a witness in his case. That effectively destroyed the case. And so, you know, it could be very difficult here to actually see some resolution. But if there is some kind of destruction of the case in that way, if you don't see some resolution that's satisfying to the public, then this could have serious implications for the monarchy. I mean, you could see potential abdication here if this becomes a case where the king is implicated.
And then William takes the throne.
Right, and he's a much more popular figure here.
Potential abdication. We had an article a few months ago at the Trumpet.com. If you don't have this is the latest Trumpet, by the way, the February issue. As I said at the top, I mean, a lot of what we're seeing now in Britain, it reminds me of all that we've said over the years about Germany. The headline on this cover, decades of warnings about Germany. It's all coming together. Exactly as God prophesied. If you want to subscribe to the Trumpet, make sure you call our operators today and request a free 1-year subscription. This article, What is the Monarchy For? At thetrumpet.com. The British people have lost faith in the monarchy. King Charles III has stripped his brother, Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, of all his royal titles after his connections to the late sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. So this happened a while back. Some people are urging him to strip his son Harry of all his royal titles. What is going on? What is wrong with Harry? What is wrong with Andrew? What's wrong with the family? What's wrong with their marriages? You could go right down the line. It says here, now English journalist David Dimbleby is taking things a step further, suggesting that Britain strip all British royals of all their aristocratic titles. This was, as I say, from a few months ago. Here's, I think we might have played this at the time, but listen to Dimbleby. This is clip 8.
They live in absolute luxury. I agree that. You know, they have huge wealth. They have huge privileges. They only pay tax voluntarily. They own estates that they take the profit from. They can avoid certain laws. They're not, the Race Relations Act doesn't apply to the royal family. Equality of Opportunity Act doesn't apply. I mean, there are all kinds of privileges that keep them apart. They can even look at laws if they think they may affect their private interests and suggest changes. I mean, it's an extraordinary position. And I'm just exploring all those things and asking, really, whether this is still the kind of monarchy we want, or whether, as William said, change is on the agenda, and it's going to have to change to adapt to a more skeptical generation.
He's the one that asks, what's the monarchy for? This article from the Trumpet, it says most people in Britain today can't answer this question, and that's why Dimbleby's documentary is getting so much traction. He says, the late Herbert Armstrong explained in U.S. and Britain in Prophecy that the British royal family descended from King David, who for more than 3,000 years has never lacked a descendant to rule over descendants of ancient Israel. Charles is literally the head of a national family. As I said earlier, I mean, the royal family should be the foundation for family in Britain. even in America in many ways. What is the monarchy for? Nothing less than recalling the richest national heritage in human history. That's what it's for. And of course, when you look at it today, I mean, there's no rule there that's left. There certainly isn't an example for the people to follow. There's luxury, there's wealth, there's all the benefits, there's a lot of scandal. And up until this time, the problems or the scandals, when they were revealed, they just went away. Well, now they're finally catching up to the royal family. They're catching up to the rulers, the elites. Further on, it says, the British monarchy is for turning people to God. Yet, as my father pointed out, this is an article I wrote, as my father pointed out in the fall of the British royal family, the royal family has forgotten God, ignored its purpose, and has even championed historical revision, faithlessness, fornication, adultery, homosexuality, transgenderism, and other sins. That's what this family stands for. And that's why this family can barely stand any longer. It gets back to sin. Sin weakens families. Sin weakens communities. It weakens churches. It weakens entire nations. Look at Daniel 8, where it talks about this time at the end when transgressors come to the full. I mean, we're just surrounded by transgression, by sin, by rebellion, by lawlessness. Jesus said it would be just like it was in the days leading up to the flood, the days of Noah. We're seeing it happen. We're living through it. It's all around us. Does it alarm you? Do you see it? Do you see how it squares exactly with what Bible prophecy says would be happening just before the return of Christ? You can go right down the line. I mean, 2 Timothy 3, I mentioned Isaiah 3, Isaiah 1, Matthew 24. Galatians 5 talks about all the works of the flesh and the lifestyles that won't be in God's kingdom. 1 Corinthians 6, another long list. Adultery, fornication, and on it goes. Those who live in that particular way of life, they're not going to be in God's kingdom. I mean, that's straight up New Testament teaching. You cannot reason around that unless you're just a flat out rebel. It's plain as day in the scriptures. The ignominious end of the British royal family was prophesied. All right, here's God's take. Here's God's perspective. It says, Hosea 3:4 prophesies that the children of Israel shall abide many days without a king and without a prince and without a sacrifice, without an image and without an ephod and without a teraphim. And then we point you to the New Throne of David booklet, the Key of David booklet. And as this article at the Trumpet brings out, it just says that soon Britain's not going to have a king. No king. I mean, that New Throne of David revelation, that came out just 9 years ago. I mean, that's not that long. In some ways, it's hard to believe it's been 9 years because it still seems for us, I mean, it still seems so fresh, so exciting, so electrifying. But look at what's happened in 9 years. That was the same year, by the way, 2017, when Jeroboam came in the first time around for the first term. And since that time, I mean, we have just seen the British royal family implode from within. I mean, it is a mere shell of what it once was. Think about Queen Elizabeth when she was coming into office. What was it, 1952 or 53, I think it was. And she's a young princess about to become queen, and she's there on this iconic video saying, I'm here to serve. I'm here to serve you people of Britain. I'm here to be a shepherd, you know. She didn't use that word specifically, but she definitely said, I serve. That's our motto. I'm here to serve. And is that the motto of the royal family today? Or are they more concerned about serving themselves? You go from perhaps one of the greatest scandals in the history of that royal family to a London fashion show, business as usual. What does it say about our time? If you look at what's happening in Britain, remember, Herbert Armstrong said Britain is not going to be in this final resurrection of the Holy Roman Empire. It's not going to be in that union of nations. And in 2016, that happened. They voted to move out. And then 2017, all the revelation about the new throne, and then the demise of the royal family. And that's all there in the New Throne of David book. Jeroboam's coming on the scene for the first time. The Jeroboam end. And when you see what's happened to the royal family, when you see what has accelerated the formation of the Holy Roman Empire in Europe, when you see what's happened in the United States, even with the temporary resurgence, Donald Trump prophesied to come back. But still looking at our sins, looking at our sin-drenched society, it's all in place. Now is the time to get ready. Now is the time to prepare. To prepare for the climax of the close here. God said to Ezekiel the prophet in chapter 2, you better be courageous. You better be willing and able to speak the truth. Even if people don't like it. We were reading this wonderful passage in John 9 this morning before the shepherd chapter in John 10. It's the chapter about, the blind man who was blind from birth and Jesus healed him. And they asked him, well, is it his sins that brought this on or his parents or what? And Christ actually said, no, this is of God. God's the one that blinded this individual from birth. And then it went on for years. I don't know, the man was 30, 35 years of age? So he's blind his whole life. For that very moment, for that final Feast of Tabernacles, last great day celebration for Jesus Christ and his disciples. And he's healed and he's given his sight. And the chapter just goes on and on with all this detail of the Pharisees coming along saying, how were you healed? And who did it? And, well, did it happen on the Sabbath day? And, well, it couldn't have happened because of Christ. He's a sinner. I mean, he did this on the Sabbath, so go get your parents. Let's ask them. I mean, was your son actually blind from birth? Yes, he was. Well, how was he healed? Well, ask him. And it says in the scriptures, they were afraid. They were afraid of being cast out of the temple because the religious elites of the day were intimidating. They were self-righteous. And the beautiful thing about that passage is the young man that was blind, he received his sight. He was so grateful. He was jubilant. And he said to those Pharisees, Jesus did it. And how could he be a sinner? How could God hear his prayers if he's the kind of individual you say he is? No, he's a man of God. This is a miracle. What is wrong with you? And they cast him out of the temple. That young man had some courage. As I told the students this morning, I wish his name was in there. I'm looking forward to meeting him in the kingdom. It's a remarkable young man who didn't have sight for his entire life. And as soon as he receives it and hears that, well, this is of God, God did this, he wasn't resentful, he wasn't bitter, he didn't get angry. He gave thanks and praise to God. And then he rebuked those Pharisees. He showed some courage to stand up to the ruling class of his day, the religious elites. That's quite a testimony. That's quite an example. You can see why God says to the prophet in Ezekiel 2, now you better make sure, even if they don't obey, even if they don't hear you out, you better make sure you preach the truth. This is a rebellious house. you're preaching to. They're not going to accept it, but you still have to proclaim the truth. You still have to have the courage to speak for God. The world doesn't like God's message because it's corrective. It's not like it's 100% correction top to bottom, but it does say all scripture is given by inspiration from God, and it's profitable. How is it profitable? For doctrine, for reproof, for correction, and for instruction. We need to be instructed. We need to be corrected. We need reproof. The psalmist in Psalm 119 says, "Make me obey your precepts and commandments." I mean, that's coming from an individual that surrendered to God's will and just said, you have your way with me. You lead me to your laws and your government, your precepts. Fashion me. God's the master potter. Shape me, mold me, put me into the position you want me to be in. Help me to submit to your will. Philippians 2:13. I mean, go and study the War of the Wills chapter in the Overcomer booklet. God is reproducing his character in us. And if we fight and resist against it and defiantly shake our fist at God, well, we're going to end up miserable and unhappy, like so many people in this world. As I said on the show yesterday, I mean, look at how the world just hardly even bats an eye at the sins of fornication, adultery, the sins that are destroying our families. It's no big deal. I mean, it's just sex. And the family continues to break down. And along with it, the whole of society. So very sad. For God to keep his promise that David shall never want a man to sit upon the throne of the house of Israel, God had to move David's throne out of Britain. Well, this is amazing. God knew this was coming. God had to move the throne out of Britain. He had to establish a new throne with a new king. That's all laid out in the New Throne of David book. God knew where this was headed. God knew what sin would do to the royal family of Britain. He knows what sin does to nations of Israel, nations that should be setting an example of righteousness and obedience. Do you see where this is leading? Do you see where we're headed? Do you see how deceived so many preachers of today are in America and Britain? Mostly in America, I guess. Fake preachers, I mean. Britain hardly even has preachers. When they go on and on about the golden age, listen, we are righteous because we're winning elections. That's what constitutes righteousness here in the last days for America. Just win that election, and then there is a righteous movement at work. There is a religious resurgence. God is well pleased. God is blessing us. Is God blessing us? It's not like it takes, this super deep, in-depth study to figure that out. Now, I would encourage super deep, in-depth study. But just open your eyes and look around. Look at the condition of the family. Look at the British royal family. Look at the MAGA movement. I had an article, I almost got to it. Well, I got to it on this show, I guess, but I was going to record it for the Key of David show. But it was one we went through a week or two ago. Remember this article about the MAGA movement and how we need to expand the tent and just welcome in anybody? And I mean, even if you're caught up into all kinds of sex sins and the family roles are upside down, nothing like what the Bible reveals or says. But hey, just bring them in. Get them into MAGA. And if you're on the other side, you're more traditionalist, you've got to be tolerant. We need a bigger tent because we've got to win elections. We just have to win those elections. this article, it concludes, Bible prophecies state that Jesus will sit on the throne of David in Jerusalem when he returns. Isn't it amazing to think that God, his purpose, his plan stands, and nothing is going to prevent this from happening? Jesus Christ is going to return to sit on the throne of David. You think about these statements from the New Throne of David book. I've mentioned it several times. Here's a quote, and it's referring to 2 Samuel 7 and verses 12 to 16, the Davidic covenant God made. God told David how he would sustain the king sitting on that throne. He would use men to chasten him and keep the throne with the line of David. But what if that nation becomes so evil that God must destroy it and plant the throne in another nation? Anciently, God sent the prophet Jeremiah to warn Judah of its destruction. That's a type of what is to happen to Britain, America, Judah in this end time. So God took action anciently, and he removed the throne from Jerusalem and moved it to Ireland, then Scotland, then England. And now it's here in America because of what's happening in Britain. How great is God? How sure are the prophecies of God? God must no longer recognize the throne in Britain as David's throne. He goes through that prophecy in Hosea 3:4, where there's not going to be a king for a time, at least not on that old throne, but there will be a king because of what God promised David. There would be an unbroken line. Now the throne may have to move, God may have to transfer it over here, but the prophecies are sure. The promises of God are true and right and just. We're living in a time of terrible corruption in the nations of Israel. With the royal family in Britain today, God cannot correct the situation by the stripes of men. He cannot set things right within Ephraim, Manasseh, and Judah under present conditions. And then he says here, think about this. If Britain no longer has the throne of David, this strongly indicates that Britain is going to go down rapidly. That's in the New Throne of David book. That revelation was given in 2017. The book came out the following year, I believe. And now we have it. We have it for you at no cost or obligation. If you don't have a copy of that in your library, make sure that you call our operators today and request your free copy of the New Throne of David. While you're at it, make sure you subscribe to our monthly magazine, Tomorrow's News Today. I gave you quite a few quotes from a Trumpet article from a few months ago about the royal family, about the throne of David. I had quite a lot of material, by the way, on the military buildup, the arms buildup surrounding Iran, and President Trump saying, well, you know, I'm thinking right now, I'm weighing whether or not we're going to have a limited strike. We'll see. Some are saying it could happen as soon as this weekend. So we may have a lot to talk about on Monday's show. As for this show, we're out of time. The fastest moving hour in broadcasting. We're going to save the last few minutes for WorldWatch. You are listening to Stephen Flurry, and this is the Trumpet Daily. Thanks for joining us today. Thanks for joining us all week, and we'll see you Monday.
The U.S. will hand over all 3 of the North Atlantic Treaty Organization's Joint Force Commands to European nations, NATO confirmed February 10th, part of an ongoing plan to cede more leadership over the alliance to Europe. Italy will take charge of Joint Force Command Naples, Britain of Joint Force Command Norfolk, and Germany and Poland of Joint Force Command Brunssum. The U.S. will lead NATO's Maritime Command, headquartered in Greater London, and will maintain its strategic leadership over Naples, Norfolk, and Brunssum. However, these 3 commands, responsible for the Mediterranean flank, North Atlantic Arctic flank, and Eastern flank respectively, will be led by Europeans at the operational level. German press agency reports that as part of the restructure, Germany will occupy more top positions in the alliance's military command structure than the U.S. in the future. The plan will likely take months to fully implement, but it converts U.S. rhetoric about Europe taking care of its own defense into reality. The U.S. is not only allowing but pushing for this change as it devotes greater effort to deterring China and other threats. It is confident that Europe will not use its increased autonomy and military spending to resist or attack its current transatlantic ally. However, Bible prophecy shows this American-approved strategy will ultimately enable the establishment of an anti-America superpower. To learn more, read our Trends article, Why the Trumpet Watches Europe's Push Toward a Unified Military. The U.S. confirmed on February 12th that it has withdrawn from the Al-Tanf deconfliction zone, a patch of southeastern Syrian territory the U.S. used to fight the Islamic State during the Syrian civil war. The U.S. has allowed the Syrian military, now led by former al-Qaeda operative President Ahmed al-Sharaa, to take over the perimeter. This follows the U.S. abandoning its Kurdish allies to the north and means that it no longer has any significant military presence in Syria. Withdrawing from Al-Tanf basically means U.S. President Donald Trump is confident Sharaa's government is the best option to govern Syria and no longer needs any American checks. Aside from signaling to Sharaa that he can continue his consolidation of Syria with impunity, this also leaves jihadist groups like Iranian proxies and even the Islamic State an opportunity to reestablish a foothold in Syria. Prophecies in Daniel 11 and Psalm 83 indicate America's time as the strongest power in the Middle East is numbered. To learn more, read America is Backing Out. Germany plans to build a new network of spy satellites, as well as space planes and offensive lasers, the commander of German Space Command, Major General Michael Traut, announced on February 3rd. The planned investments are part of a $41 billion military space spending plan aimed at countering threats from Russia and China in orbit. Germany will build a new low Earth orbit constellation of more than 100 military satellites over the next few years, designed to speed communications and track missile launches. Germany also wants to develop satellite disabling technologies that use lasers, signal jamming, and targeting of ground-based control stations, plus small, highly maneuverable inspector satellites that can closely monitor other nations' satellites. China, Russia, and the US have already deployed such satellites. Space warfare technology is a high priority for world powers, including Germany. Defense Minister Boris Pistorius warned on September 25th, satellite networks are now the Achilles heel of modern societies. Since the 1990s, Trumpet editor-in-chief Gerald Flurry has characterized heavy strategic and military dependence on computer technologies as an Achilles heel. To learn more, read America's Achilles Heel and Germany. To learn more about current world news and how it relates to Bible prophecy, please visit thetrumpet.com.